you're going to learn is that you could accomplish more in a few minutes a week, literally a few minutes a week, than most people do who are working 3 hours a day, maybe 6 days a week. And what I'm going to share with you is not some pump up or some enthusiastic new technique from an infomercial on some machine. I'm going to show you is empirical knowledge, skills, a set of training principles, if you would, that when you apply them, you can see immediate measurable results no matter what you've been doing before in less time. Now, the people that I'm going to introduce you to that are going to be joining us here today have applied these. They're both researchers. They're both men who have had the experience of creating these changes in their own body, because, again, my ultimate test is results. You know, it's one thing to say you got endurance. It's another thing to be able to get your body to run 1,000 miles. I am so excited about what you've done here. I just started to be exposed to the principles. I had one little mini workout. I couldn't believe the amount that I could lift. I couldn't believe how short the workout was, but how good I felt afterwards. I didn't feel beat up. I didn't feel dead. I didn't feel like, oh my God, I can't breathe, because I'm a maniac. I do something, I do it full out, man. And so I almost felt like I was cheating. But the muscular development I felt just in this first little exposure was amazing. I'm literally just starting, so I wanted to come see you guys and hear from the horse's mouth what this is. Tell me a little bit how this came about. I mean, this is a huge breakthrough. It's the equivalent of understanding aerobics for muscles, really, I believe. So how did this science come about?
John and I have known each other since childhood. In our adult years, we never lived in the same city. But finally, in 1992, we were both living in Los Angeles. And John's a lifetime fitness advocate and wanted somebody to work out with him in the gym. And I went and did workouts with him, but I've never been a guy who liked to be in the gym or wanted to go there. I always had 15 or 20 places I'd sooner be.
Like you along with 250 million other humans, right? I feel the same way.
So when we started working out, my mind was towards efficiency and how can we get the most out of this.
Most result in the shortest time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we started working out, and I was literally keeping track of the weight we lifted, the number of repetitions, the amount of time it took. And at the end of the workouts, I'd enter them into a laptop computer, and I had graphs and charts and a real analysis of it. And it's amazing to me that in at least a century of strength training, no one has ever taken an analysis of it that was based on just the simple laws of mechanics that come to us from Isaac Newton.
Right.
It's amazing to me that nobody did that, because the critical element in this is work in a unit of time.
People just think of the number of repetitions.
Number of repetitions.
And it's arbitrary.
And you see it in the way people work out. You know, you see it in the way they'll go over the dumbbell rack. They'll do a little something. They don't maybe count the reps. They put it down. They look for a piece of equipment that's not being used in the gym. They go over and bang out a few reps on that. They go over and get a drink at the cooler. There's no sense of precision, of an awareness that the clock is ticking. But the fact of the matter is that that's the way you get muscle to grow. Right. So when we started to use that kind of analysis, things just took off.
You mentioned off the top the marathoner, and that's a perfect example of what Pete's talking about.
Right.
Marathoners do a great amount of work over a fair amount of time.
Right.
By contrast, you have a sprinter who does a great amount of work in a very short span of time.
Right.
But if you look at the muscular hypertrophy or the size of the muscles of the sprinter, it's always bigger than the marathoner. Right. And that's because they're packing a lot of weight, a lot of intensity, a lot of work, which is the technical formula for muscle growth in a given unit of time.
Yeah, the sprinters got to use so much more force.
Absolutely.
They got bigger muscles.
We have the luxury of being able to adjust and manipulate the weight, that variable.
Right.
And as a result, we can bring more intensity to bear on a given muscle group than a sprinter can. Right. In fact, if you watch a sprinter, when he finishes, he's winded, he's tired, there's lactic acid throughout his legs. But within about 2 minutes or so walking around the track, he can probably run again.
Right.
You know, you do a set of static holds with 2,000 pounds to the point of failure, and you'll be lucky if you can stand up initially.
Let's talk about you guys from a result perspective. Besides shaping your body, and everybody has a different genetic shape.
Right.
You know, people can put up the same effort, not get the same result, obviously. And there are a lot of people in bodybuilding that are augmenting that shape,
yes,
obviously,
indeed. Yeah.
with a variety of drugs and so forth. But just you guys, you're both natural bodybuilders, or I shouldn't say bodybuilders. You work out a couple minutes a week. Tell us what your regimen is now. This is what's going to blow people's mind. And tell us with this regimen, how much progress did you make?
First of all, I'd never considered myself a bodybuilder, but I'd be more in the category of a power lifter type of person. But when I started out in this, I was a conventional trainee. I did the things that everybody did. Very full range of motion. You mentioned a shrug. Typically, I did it the way most people do. Go over to the dumbbell rack, pick out a couple of dumbbells, may or may not have noticed what they weigh.
And why dumbbells?
Just that they match.
Greater range of motion. Yeah, they matched. Yeah, or they match.
Let's get two that match. And I'd bang out the shrugs until.
Like what weight were you using back in that minute?
Oh, maybe 60 pounds per dumbbell.
Right.
That was a big weight.
And that was a big weight.
Yeah,
and you do 3 sets of 12 reps or something like that. You start to feel some real fatigue in your trap muscles. When we switched to static contraction, the range went down to 0 range of motion, and a static hold for 10 seconds with 1,000 pounds.
Oh my God!
And that was.
I mean, can you imagine people watching, listening? I hope they get a picture of this. A shrugging 1,000. The amount of strength it would take to shrug 1,000 pounds is unbelievable. And it took you a few months to do that, but it's been an evolution of your technique also. Your evolution of your technique started with you saying, instead of doing 1,000,000 repetitions, let's figure out what's the maximum demand I can make on this muscle in the shortest period of time.
Right.
And then you did a smaller number of repetitions, and then eventually you got to the point where what static contraction really is you're holding in the strongest position of the muscle to its absolute total fatigue. So you're making the largest human demand you can on that, so that the brain says, I got to have major muscle here, and it sends what's necessary to build that muscle. Is that a fair metaphorical description?
That's exactly how it happened. And the power factor, the beginning of this, our first book, we limited that range, depending on the exercise, to 4 to 6 inches of motion.
Right.
And we actually found, through all the people that were on this and the feedback we got, that people had reduced that to even 1 inch or 2 inches of motion, and then seen another quantum increase in their results, which was the beginning of when we started to put together a static contraction study, which would be no movement. You hold the weight in where you're strongest, with every muscle where you're strongest, not where you're weakest, which is A, where you fail, and B, where you get injuries, but only in the strongest range. And that made an enormous difference.
When I read your book and started seeing the static contraction led to all this and saw the measurable difference in the shorter period of time, it's an even more efficient approach, isn't it?
What's interesting is people always labor under the misapprehension that there's different fibers involved in different ranges of motion, and therefore if you only do it one range, you're only hitting some fibers. But that flies completely in the face of muscle physiology. I mean, if you flex your chest with your arm fully extended, that's every muscle fiber in your chest. And let's say theoretically that you stimulate 100% of those fibers. Well, those are the same fibers that are activated down here as there are here as there are there. It's 100%. When you flex your bicep, you notice how it bunches up. And that's all the fibers coming in.
Right.
So if you can stimulate all the fibers in that one position, what is this going to do? I mean, and certainly there's going to be a transference.
Sure.
Because it's the same muscle. It's you're only dealing with a finite amount of muscle fibers there, and if they're all activated, they're all activated.
The truth of the matter is one of the reasons I guess that people don't get the maximum growth, even though they go spend the time, right, is that they're never demanding the particular muscle fibers that give the greatest growth. I guess there's the S fibers. Maybe you can walk us through that briefly.
Well, there's different fibers, and they're recruited sequentially. And it's all force related. If you have a 10-pound dumbbell, you're only going to need slow twitch fibers to activate it or to contract it. That's all the force that's required to move it. And even no matter how quickly you do it, it's still going to be slow twitch fibers that are activated.
Right.
But now you add 50 pounds to that, and you're going to get your slow twitch, and you're going to get intermediate twitch.
Okay.
If you put it close to maximal, you're going to get fast twitch, and also a group of fibers they call fast twitch glycolytic, which is the zenith of full activation. But because of the sequential nature of it, if you can activate the fast twitch glycolytic, you've got all your fibers. You've got slow twitch working, you've got intermediate twitch, you've got fast twitch, then you've got your fast twitch glycolytic. So
in other words, if I can make a heavy enough demand, because it's all about force, if I get the heavy demand, I go straight. I get all those fibers.
They have to recruit sequentially. And like the slow twitch will say, not enough, need more fibers. Intermediate comes in, not enough, need more fibers. Fast twitch comes in, not enough, need the top of the